Pure and radiant, he wields love to shrive clean the hearts of men. There is nothing more terrifying. Shrive meaning to absolve someone of their sins. We know that Miquella can compel such affection. Plus, even Gideon, a tarnished who is willing to slaughter an entire village to obtain his goal, becomes fearful when speaking of Miquella. He begins to carry off in thought as he mentions he knows that Miquella is going somewhere. Was he referring to the Shadowlands? After providing him with knowledge of Miquella's whereabouts, Gideon gives us back the law of causality. This law is a pull between meanings, that which links all things in a chain of relation. This idea of absolving sins could be related to the perceived sins of the Golden Order, acknowledging the atrocities they've committed against those they've deemed as enemies, like the fire giants, as we see Messmer's spear found impaled into their bodies within the Northern Mountaintops. The Guardian's garrison, also in the north, is an area filled with these thorn spears, as well as multiple sorcerers that have thorn crowns and shackles. Thorn sorcerers use the same red glintstone as Messmer, both related to the Formless Mother. Why is it that the Northern Mountaintops are a forbidden place from the perspective of the Golden Order? First, because it contains the Forge of the Giants, and second, because it highlights the horrors that they have committed in the past. Those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death in the embrace of Messmer's flame. The flame that Messmer holds seems to have black markings seeping through it. The markings seem similar to the thorns found on the sorcerers at the Guardian's garrison. The markings also resemble Commander Niall's cape, the commander located in Castle Sol, where Miquella failed to give Godwyn a proper death. Miquella thought by using the power of an eclipse, he can release Godwyn of his torment. The stone in the spear resembles the stone that is used by the seal of the Godskin Apostles, who use the god-slaying black flame. The rune featured in the trailer looks like an eclipse as well, a converging of the sun and moon. Within cut content, Miquella is connected to the rune of abundance. In the Lands Between, life has stagnated. The waters, the stars, sap from the Erdtree, the flow of life has halted with the removal of death. Miquella wishes to return this flow, as it may cure his sister of the festering rot, and give his brother a true death. As Castle Sol relates to Godwyn, the Shaded Castle relates to Malenia. Inside of the Shaded Castle are depraved perfumers, wearing tunics with snakes. The term shaded here means to conceal, as the castle itself is tucked away between two cliff sides. The meaning of the term continues with the title of the DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. The Shadowlands appear in the trailer to have a concealing veil draped over them in the same style as Marika's bedchamber. Marika's mischief is a veil that Marika used to transform into objects, possibly to keep an eye on our unsuspecting subjects. The Golden Order has altered the Lands Between in many ways, like how item descriptions have been rewritten from the perspective of the Order. The concealing veil atop the Shadowlands may have been placed there by Marika to hide her origin of where she became a god, as to erase that she was ever something prior, therefore establishing her as the Eternal, meaning lasting or existing forever, without end or beginning. Where could these Shadowlands be? It has been long thought that the cloud in the middle of the Divine Tower is the veil, and just like Marika's mischief, it takes the form of a cloud to conceal itself. If you look at the map, you can see this concealment in action. As the boat starts to disappear, the closer it gets to the veil. The blue gold kite shield interestingly mentions that its design represents the Erdtree, foreground against a blue sky. This shield could symbolize the original Erdtree, mentioned during the time of the Crucible, now being hidden by a cloud. Crepuscular rays are shafts of light which are seen after the sun has set. They form only when the sun is set behind an irregularly shaped cloud or mountain, which lets the rays of the sun pass through the cloud in bands. Crepuscular is a term also relating to the character Crepus, an assassin who served the two fingers from the Shadows of the Round Table as the head confessor. Remember the term shrive from earlier. To absolve someone of their sins, they must first confess, just like the confessors who seek out the guilty within the Golden Order. Crepus Vial is a small mysterious bottle with a dark mist sealed within that conceals sound. Speaking of assassins, let's quickly cover the serpent bow that was used by the assassins known as the Formless Serpents, creating another connection with snakes and the Formless Mother. The northern region of the Lands Between is heavily associated with Miquella, as his heritage is displayed in the consecrated snowfield with the Forlorn Cave and Albinauric Rise, as Miquella is both a misbegotten and a silver tear, respectively, via his father Radagon. If you look at Messmer's appearance, he has scales, tails, and claws, all indicators of the primordial crucible. Messmer's snake tail mirrors the Chimera. Again, him being the son of Radagon would make sense, as Radagon himself is a chimera, as he was once a misbegotten that transformed into Marika by the use of the silver tear science. The southern region is heavily associated with Radagon, as it shows his heritage, his background as a misbegotten laborer, his rebellion, and his transformation into Marika's mimic via the silver tear. This is why the area is called the Weeping Peninsula. Weeping means to shed tears. Also in the Weeping Peninsula is the Impaler's Catacombs. Inside are grave violets, purple flowers that bloom in graveyards. Purple is associated with Miquella. Inside of the catacombs is the prattling pate, please help, found near endlessly respawning putrid corpses that are living in death. The pate resembles an open cocoon. Could this plea be that of Godwyn, who wishes to finally die a true death, or could it be Miquella that has been kidnapped by Mog? It appears that Messmer is missing the exact same eye as the prattling pate. Messmer's sigil includes a needle. Who else is known for needles? Well, Radagon and Miquella. Radagon used his needle with Marika's hair in an attempt to mimic her to become a god. Miquella used his needle in a defensive way to ward off the outer gods. A needle is a sharp object that can be used to draw blood, again connecting it to the formless mother. Speaking of which, the emblem that the fire creature in the DLC has is similar to the emblem of the Lonesome Dung Eater's armor, which is said to be the Blood Star, Red Star, or Formless Mother. The Dung Eater craves wounds as well and spreads the Omen Curse, a reminder of the Crucible. The Crucible is heavily featured in the DLC, like the Omen Dancers mirroring Lion Dancers from China. Per Miyazaki's interview, 8 new weapon types will be added. One will be the dueling long shield. The medieval fencing manuscript shown here provides a tutorial for combat, including a technique called the Sun Pointer, in which the opponent's head is retched around, so that he can see the sun. And the shield is used to throw him over yourself, using your opponent's own weight against them. Purely speculation, another one of the newest weapons could be a fire lance, a gun-powdered weapon, like the Jar Cannon. It's a small pyrotechnic device attached to a pole arm, used to gain a shock advantage at the start of a melee with fire, an element that seemingly receives a great deal of focus on within the DLC. The dueling long shield reminded me of the duelist, who used to be competitors within the Colosseum. Rotten duelists are found in the consecrated snowfield, a location again affiliated with Miquella. Rotten duelists share many of the same visual motifs with Messmer. Interestingly, within the jail cave in Caelid there is a frenzied duelist, and a spectral candelabra leads the tarnished to this location. Miquella's candlestick shield displays a cardinal sin, as a lit tree candle design was forbidden within the Golden Order. The old man we see in the photo may be Marika's father. He could also potentially be Rose's, or just a founder of the Golden Order. The fact that he is impaled with a candle might show that he's been punished by Messmer for the evils that he's committed under the Order's influence. Miquella needed an alter ego to operate in the Lands Between because he was practicing forbidden knowledge under the Order's purview. He, like Rykard, wished to burn the tree, but unlike Rykard, he wished to supersede the Golden Order, to perfect it as he saw fit, using the Halig tree to become a god, as his mother did before him. St. Trina's torch, like Miquella's spectral candelabra, are both connected to fire, which again is forbidden within the Order. St. Trina used dreams to travel and gain knowledge about the Lands Between while under a different alias. Quick side note, living jars contain the bodies of the dead. The jars shown in the DLC are left suspended, as if they're floating in a dream. Also, they give me some major Volcano Manor vibes. Sleep within the Lands Between is tied to death. Elden Ring begins when the Tarnished arises from a deep slumber of death. Malenia puts us to sleep when she teleports us to the Rune of Death. Ranni, a goddess associated with death, goes into a deep slumber during her quest. And Malenia is found sleeping in the Erdtree as she tries to commune with her brother Miquella, who is also said to be slumbering in a cocoon soaked with blood. Fia is called a deathbed companion. Her union with the deceased Godwyn is a melding of life and death, symbolically similar to Miquella's plan of using an eclipse. The eclipse Miquella wishes to achieve is a union of the sun and the moon, life and death, to assist Godwyn. Fia's union of life and death is to create a child, the mending rune of the Death Prince. The Golden Order was created by confining destined death. Thus, this new order will be one of death restored. Restoring death, or at least accepting it, appears to be the goal of both parties. Fia's dream contains Lich Dragon Fortisax, who's trying to fight off the death root that has taken over Godwyn's corpse. His ability to use Death Blight may indicate that he has absorbed the death root successfully from Godwyn, and as we slay Fortisax, we slay the decay, therefore producing the rune to mend death back into the natural order of life. Seraphs in the Bible appear to be winged serpents. Extra-biblical traditions all seem to indicate that the snakes we see today are debased or devolved forms of what we had earlier. just as the Giant Crusher states that man has grown feeble in comparison to his forebears, or how the Three Fingers views new creation as fractures, all forms of devolution. Many envoys of powerful gods have wings. Typically, the envoys will use these wings in their final form to channel the true power of their god, also known as their second phase of battle. Could Messmer's second phase be that of a transformation into a red dragon? The transformation of snakes into dragons shows immortality in many myths. Elden Ring's narrative of the Golden Order is deeply related to Catholicism. The end of days within Catholicism is brought about by an individual known as the Antichrist. The Antichrist is known as the Son of Destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called god or religion, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. He will come disguised as the great humanitarian. He will talk peace, prosperity, and plenty. He appears to those as the innocent Lamb of God, but in truth, he is more like a dragon. He will tempt Christians with the same three temptations in which he tempted Christ. He will have one great secret, in which he will tell no one. This secret is his disbelief in the current system. The Antichrist will imitate the miracles performed by Jesus, such as healing the sick and raising the dead, the latter done with the aid of demons. He will deceive many people, such as weavers, magicians, half-castes, children, and non-believers. Some believe that the Antichrist would come from the tribe of Dan. Modern artists use the scale of justice to represent the tribe of Dan, due to Genesis 49:16 referencing Dan shall achieve justice for his kindred. Other artists use the snake to represent Dan, based on Genesis 49:17. Let Dan be a serpent by the roadside, a horned viper by the path, that bites the horse's heel so that the rider tumbles backward. The dialogue within the trailer mentions that forsaken place, blood must spill, alluding to the Shadowlands, the blood of your fellows, the Erdtree faithful, they were never saints. Could this be a reference to Saint Trina, having a darker side? Messmer's visual design is everything that conflicts with the Golden Order, a combination of powers derived from outer gods in order to slay the Elden Beast and free the Lands Between of the Greater Will. Messmer's power connects to each of the other demigods, using their divine towers as a funnel to meld them together like the Crucible. In the Bible, God changes an individual's name to establish a new identity. For example, God changed Abram's name, meaning High Father, to Abraham, meaning Father of a Multitude. Could the Formless Mother have renamed Miquella to be Messmer? The first part Mess being the same as Messiah, a savior or liberator of a group of people. Messmer could also relate to the power of hypnosis, mesmerizing, which sounds similar to the powers of control that Miquella was said to have over others, through blood magic derived from the Formless Mother. Miquella is seemingly an Empyrean bent on saving his sister, his brother, and the Lands Between. He sees how the Golden Order has negatively impacted the lands, and wishes to become a god to change the current status quo. He is associated with abundance, and many gather to his cause in hopes of finding salvation, like the Misbegotten and Albinaurics. He appears to cure those of rot with his needles, yet upon removing the needle, the rot returns. Therefore, it's apparent that the needle isn't a long-term solution, somewhat like faking miracles. At the same time, we know very little about his true intentions, other than that he uses blood magic to control others. From his perspective, he is achieving freedom from the Greater Will, but from the perspective of the Golden Order, he could be viewed as the Antichrist, as he is trying to dismantle the current vision of what the populace has been forced to believe in, via Marika's manipulative tactics that she used to become known as the Eternal. Currently, this is all speculation, of course, until the DLC release in June, and I know we are all very excited to hear about that. Thank you so much for indulging my thoughts today, and as always, I hope you have a wonderful week.